Greetings, everybody, and welcome to this talk about the Rosy Cross Blazing Star. For the last 60 years or so, we have been living through the quatercentenaries of the key happenings of a blazing star appearance, and as such, we have been experiencing its much magnified effects as an even greater blazing star. Blazing star that is helping us in the transition from one great age and into a new great age. But what is a blazing star? And what is the Rosy Cross Blazing Star? Well, stars, of course, are naturally associated with the sky, where they're seen, but they can also affect us and send us cryptic messages as to what to do and when. And the blazing star is named as such after Blaise, the teacher of Merlin. It is a six-pointed star that is otherwise known as the Star of David or Christ star. The blazing star refers not only to a particular star, but also to a cryptogram that is sketched out in the sky by certain key planets. And I shall talk about both as they are intimately related. In a 60-year period of time, 3 successive great conjunctions and oppositions of Saturn and Jupiter mark out in the sky the 6 points of a hexagram known as Solomon's seal. This is a balanced geometric shape consisting of 2 interlocked and equal sides equilateral triangles, one pointing up, the other pointing down, forming a hexagram within the circle known as the ecliptic, which is the sun's path through the sky. And when, in addition, other remarkable and meaningful stellar events occur at key moments and at key places in the celestial zodiac, it signals to the Magi that if certain things are done on Earth to echo the celestial events and their message, then the Solomon's seal can become, metaphorically, a 6-pointed blazing star, the Star of David or Christ star, and produce a powerful transformative force for good on Earth. The Magi are the initiates who strive to understand and follow the Hermetic teaching, as above, so below, as below, so above, for the doing of the great work, as well as the great commandments or precepts about love. Their task is to decipher the celestial cryptogram and act accordingly on Earth. The remarkable stellar events can also indicate that a great soul has incarnated on Earth as representative of the light or wisdom of the blazing star, and can even indicate where this incarnation has taken place on Earth and where the principal work is to be done. And such a happening took place in England between the years 1563 and 1624. A happening that is still affecting us now and more powerfully than most people realize. The work that was accomplished during that time was done under the banner of the Golden and Rosy Cross and was spread from England across Europe via the Magian societies of Europe and then to other parts of the world. And this work set in motion the birthing of modern science, democracy, diplomacy, friendship between nations and races, freedom from tyranny, respect for different religious beliefs, and more recently, the equal rights movement, all of which is still in a process of ongoing development. And for the last 60 years or so, we have been living through the quatercentenaries of the key happenings of that Rosy Cross Blazing Star appearance. And as a result, we've been experiencing its much magnified effect as an even greater blazing star. A blazing star that is helping us in the transition from one great age and into a new great age, and will continue to help us as we tentatively enter the new, especially if we become increasingly aware of it and follow its lead. A great age, which consists of 12 ages, is an approximate 26,000-year cycle of time, or more exactly, 25,920 years if each of the 12 ages consists of 2,160 years, as is commonly measured. I'm going to share my screen now. And the transition from one great age to the next great age is best marked by the position on the ecliptic of the midsummer and midwinter solstice suns, as the mystery schools did of old. And this provides a more accurate marker of time than the equinox suns, which derive their positions from the tilt and wobble on its axis of the planet Earth, wherein the celestial north pole of the planet is marked by a star which changes from one star to another over the course of time. And this celestial north pole is not the center of the celestial zodiac, whose circumference is the ecliptic, the sun's path through the sky. The center of the celestial zodiac is the occult or hidden pole, surrounded by Draco, the dragon. So I hope you can see it here on this chart, and there's the dragon, Draco, wrapped around it. The move from one great age to the next occurs when the solstice suns, in their precessional movement, are crossing the two places on the ecliptic where the meridian of the Milky Way, called the galactic equator, crosses the ecliptic. The two crossing places being the cusp of Gemini Taurus for the midsummer solstice sun, and the cusp of Sagittarius Scorpio for the midwinter solstice sun. These two crossing points are the only fixed points on the ecliptic as stars move over the course of time. The main axis of the celestial zodiac is the diameter between these two fixed crossing points. And all geometry then is laid out from that axis. This diameter passes through the center of the zodiac, called the occult pole, and it also passes through the star Arcas that marks the end of the tail of Ursa Minor, the little bear, which right now is our North Pole star called Polaris. I'm pointing to it now. And the transition from one great age into the next great age is always the darkest period of time, equivalent to midwinter in the annual cycle of time, when at the midwinter solstice 1 year changes to the next, as used to be recognized and still is by astrologers and the Magi, until January the 1st was made the official start of the year. But dark in this context means a time full of conflict, immorality, greed, selfishness, vice, cruelty, untruthfulness, and ignorance of truth, wherein truth, real truth, is wise and intelligent, being the wisdom and intelligence of love. Love. But at the same time, the moral darkness is a tremendous opportunity for spiritual growth by necessitating or compelling us to overcome the challenges and to learn what truth really is. And this is because, like all scientific endeavor, we can only learn the truth by studying what we think might be the truth and then practicing it, which in turn, if it was true, leads to a knowledge of truth that is illuminating, all of which is a transformation of the darkness into light. In other words, this darkest period tends to bring out both the worst and the best in human beings. The worst so that it can be recognized, challenged, healed, and transformed into something better, and the best so that it can be raised into an illumined state of being. This transition period from one great age to the next is identified in the sky when the star Arcas is most precisely our North Pole star, which it still is at present. However, this transitional period is now ending, and we are about to go more fully into the new great age. But how we will experience it depends a lot on us. So one of the good things that is good to know is that the star Arcas, our present North Pole star, Polaris, is symbolized as a six-pointed blazing star. It is also good to know that it is associated metaphysically with the star that shines above our heads, from which we receive inspiration and guidance, a star that is usually only seen in a higher state of consciousness. Now, in the sky, the star Arcas forms the first of the 7 bright stars of Ursa Minor, the Little Bear, but is more commonly referred to as the star at the end of the tail of the Little Bear. The Hebrews referred to this constellation as Dove, meaning sheepfold, a place of security and peace. And sometimes the name Dove or Dove was interpreted as a dove. Let you think about that. Now, in myth, Arcas is the shepherd king of Arcadia, the land of the Rosicrucians. And Arcas is not only the shepherd king and gatekeeper supreme, but also the gate of the sheepfold that is known as Arcadia. And Jesus' story about this, as recorded in the Gospel of John, chapter 10, was that the good shepherd would open the door of the sheepfold and gather his flock into the sheepfold to protect them during the dark night. And he further explained that the shepherd was also the door or gate of the sheepfold. And he pointed out that the good shepherd is one who looks after his flock and is prepared to lay down his life for his sheep. And sheep is a metaphor for those who follow their shepherd and have chosen to live a life of service, a life of self-sacrifice for the benefit of others and the greater good. The Arcadian sheepfold is a metaphor referring to a state of illumination, which is a state of peace. And Arcas is the blazing star, the gateway to illumination. Now, besides being the symbol of Arcas, the blazing star is actually marked out in the sky during a 60-year cycle of Saturn and Jupiter conjunctions and oppositions that are made exceptional by other phenomena. And Saturn and Jupiter conjunctions are referred to as great conjunctions and occur approximately every 20 years. And they're called great conjunctions because not only are Saturn and Jupiter the 2 outermost planets of the solar system, excluding Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and lie outside the asteroid belt, but also each great conjunction is spaced approximately 120 degrees apart from its previous or following great conjunction, as seen from the planet Earth. And they occur in the narrow band of the ecliptic, which extends 8 degrees each side of the ecliptic, wherein all the planets are seen to move. And the ecliptic, as I said before, the path of the sun, marks out the circumference of the celestial zodiac, the center of which is called the occult pole. The occult pole has an unmarked dark space in the sky, wrapped around by Draco the dragon, who mystically guards it, which I pointed out to you. Because great conjunctions occur approximately 120 degrees apart, it means that in a period of 60 years, 3 great conjunctions mark out in the sky the 3 corners of an equilateral triangle. Moreover, the 3 great conjunctions occur in 3 different zodiac signs that are usually equated with the same alchemical element. there are 4 alchemical elements: earth, water, air, and fire, and 12 zodiac signs. Hence, 3 zodiac signs share the same element. The set of 3 great conjunctions that occur in the 3 zodiac signs of a particular element is known as a trigon. And the change from one trigon to another occurs approximately every 180 or 240 years, with occasional overlaps or reversions. And a set of all 4 trigons is known as a trigonalis series. And each trigonalis series proceeds from fire to earth to air to water. The fire trigon goes from Sagittarius to Leo to Aries. The earth trigon goes from Capricorn to Virgo to Taurus. The air trigon goes from Aquarius to Libra to Gemini. The water trigon goes from Pisces to Scorpio to Cancer. Then the series repeats. And the change from one trigonalis series to another occurs when the great conjunctions move from the water trigon to the fire trigon. And for millennia, this trigonalis change has been regarded as a marker of great social and political change of some kind, with the element giving an indication of what is likely to occur. And the last trigonalis change was in 1603, which is why the Rosicrucians and other Magi of the time saw it as so important. It is also one of the reasons why the 1563 to 1623 Blazing Star period was so very potent. Now, as for Saturn-Jupiter oppositions, these occur midway between 2 great conjunctions, i.e. 10 years after each great conjunction and 10 years before the following great conjunction. And a set of 3 Saturn-Jupiter oppositions also mark out the 3 corners of an equilateral triangle, but reversed to the one produced by the set of 3 great conjunctions. And the result of the combined set of 3 successive great conjunctions and oppositions of Saturn and Jupiter, which occur in a 60-year period, is that they mark out the 6 corners of a hexagram and produce 2 intersecting equilateral triangles, one the reverse of the other, which form a perfectly balanced hexagram called the Seal of Solomon. And the 60-year rhythm of Saturn-Jupiter conjunction oppositions manifests the universal law of duality or twinship as mythologized in the story of Gemini, the twins. The Gemini consist of 2 sets of twins, one set immortal, the other mortal, with each set containing a brother and sister. And the Gemini are known as children of Leda and the Swan. Therefore, they're known as swans, with the 2 brothers, one immortal, the other mortal, also being known as spear shakers or Shakespeares. When other remarkable and meaningful stellar events occur at key moments during one of these 60-year periods, it signals to the Magi that if they can sufficiently understand the message given by the celestial events, and echo this message on earth with an appropriate work of service, then the Solomon seal can become, metaphorically, a 6-pointed blazing star, the Star of David or Christ star, and produce a powerful transformative force for good on earth. Moreover, such blazing star celestial events are usually indicative of where a great master soul or supreme magus has incarnated on earth in order to guide and lead such work, with the incarnation often having been prophesied in advance so as to prepare the Magi. and this was true for the 1563 to 1623 blazing star appearance. And all this is why the great conjunctions and oppositions of Saturn and Jupiter have been such a notable phenomenon to the sages, not just because of their symbolism, but also because of their effect on society, acting as markers of social, economic, philosophical, and political watersheds or turning points. And for this reason, Saturn and Jupiter were called the great chronocratators by astrologers of old. Chronocratator is a Greek term and means time lord or ruler of time. Now Saturn. Mythologically, Saturn, known as Kronos to the Greeks, is referred to as Father Time. Because the planet Saturn was considered to be the outermost planet of the solar system, it was also likened to Janus, the gatekeeper of the threshold, standing between what is within the solar system and what lies beyond it. As such, Saturn was known as the great Hierophant, the teacher and the tester, which is something that certainly relates to time, which constantly tests and teaches us. Astrologically or metaphysically, Saturn is associated with deep thought and melancholy, but with a tendency to be overly serious, strict, and pessimistic. But with the addition of Jupiter, the melancholy can be transformed into a joy, the ignorance into knowledge, and the empty darkness turned to light. The planet Saturn's cyclic period is approximately 29.5 years. Now Jupiter. Mythologically, Jupiter, known to the Greeks as Zeus, is Saturn's son. And while Saturn is the overall ruler of time, Jupiter rules over the ever-changing times, as represented by the zodiac of Olympian deities, each of whom represents a sign of the zodiac. Metaphysically, Jupiter is associated with compassion, mercy, forgiveness, friendliness, and humor, but with a tendency to be overly relaxed, too open, optimistic, jovial, and undisciplined. And the planet Jupiter's cyclic period is approximately 12 years. So a Saturn-Jupiter planetary conjunction symbolizes and can mark or announce a metaphysical Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, their unity together enabling a harmony to develop that produces beauty, a beauty of character, a beauty of nature, leading to enlightenment and delight. In the rabbinic Kabbalistic tradition, it is said that a great conjunction can indicate some kind of appearance of the Messiah, especially if it is a triple great conjunction. In addition, the zodiac sign in which the great conjunction takes place is an indicator of the type of manifestation that will occur. A harmony can also be achieved when Saturn and Jupiter are in opposition, but is far more challenging, as it requires a good balance to be made between the two. It is said that if a harmony and beauty of some kind has been achieved on Earth, which echoes the meaning of the Solomon's seal in the heavens that has been sketched out by the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction and oppositions, then an illumination occurs, an illumination that is also a joy. It is then that Jupiter, the Sun, can say, "The Father and I are one." It is then that Saturn is said to rule over a golden age, an age of peace, prosperity, wisdom, knowledge, and delight, which is light. It is this that is signified by the blazing star. It doesn't necessarily mean that everyone achieves it, but some do, and light spreads. Then there is Mars. When Mars is added to a great conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter, something even greater is said to happen. This is because Mars epitomizes strength, as well as perception, judgment, determination, and discipline, all of which supports and boosts the effects of a Saturn-Jupiter great conjunction, so that an even greater enlightenment is achieved. In rabbinic and Kabbalistic tradition, Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars represent the upper triangle of what's called the Lesser Adam in the Kabbalistic tree of life, triangle of higher human consciousness. So there's Saturn, Jupiter, Mars. That's the upper triangle I'm pointing to now. The Saturn-Jupiter-Mars planetary conjunction or massing is very rare, but one did take place in 1603 to 4, making the trigonalis change that happened then, the trigonalis change that happened then, extra potent and meaningful. The Saturn-Jupiter-Mars conjunction and massing that occurred then was in the fire sign of Sagittarius the Archer, who is known mythologically as the kind, learned centaur Chiron, the eldest, wisest, and justest of the centaurs. And Chiron taught Achilles, the Greek hero of the Trojan War. He also taught Hercules of the 12 Labors fame, Asclepius, the great healer, and Jason, leader of the Argonauts, amongst many others of renown. And in the southern hemisphere, southern celestial hemisphere, Chiron is represented by the constellation Centaurus. One last thing to understand before we list the Rosy Cross Blazing Star dates is that everything in life is twinned. And tradition calls this the double truth. And this is because there has to be polarity in order for anything to manifest, such as heaven and earth, spirit and matter, archetypal form and natural form, or for a form to exist in 3 dimensions, there has to be an above and below, a front and behind, a right and left, an inside and outside. Or for life generally, there has to be male and female, force and form, wisdom and intelligence, desire and thought, and so on. But every polarity creates a third, which is the connection between the 2 poles. This connection can also be understood as the relationship between the 2 poles, or 2 people, for instance. There are also 2 breaths, the spiritual or heavenly breath and the physical or earthly breath. And both are needed for our souls to be alive in an earthly body. Moreover, each of these breaths is also double. The physical breath is composed of an inhalation and an exhalation. The spiritual breath is composed of an inspiration and an expression of that inspiration. The spiritual breath enters the body via the nape of the neck and the outer major chakra that's centered in the medulla oblongata. And the physical breath enters via the nose and back of the throat. And these entrances or gateways are on a level with each other. Here we are. The former descends to inspire the heart with love and wisdom, and the latter descends to fill the lungs with oxygen. And they mingle together in the heart. They can also mingle in the outer major chakra area, but this only happens by raising our consciousness with love and aspiration to higher levels of consciousness and awareness, which leads on to a union or yoga with the divine. The two triangles of Solomon's seal are also twins, and all key dates have their twin. For instance, each great conjunction and opposition has its twin, which is the year immediately following the year of the great conjunction or opposition. Hence, each of the 6 corners of the Solomon's seal or blazing star marked by a great conjunction or opposition is actually composed of 2 years, not just one. And the key year, the year in which the great conjunction or opposition occurred, is akin to an inspiration, whilst its twin year, the year following the key year, is akin to the expression of that inspiration. Physically speaking, they're like an inhalation followed by an exhalation. When we look at the dates of the Rosy Cross Blazing Star, you will see that this twinship was deliberately marked when possible by the Rosy Cross fraternity. Now, the starting point of this particular blazing star took place in England in 1563, and like all beginnings, was fairly secret. And the Great Conjunction took place on the 4th of September 1563 in the water sign of Cancer, I'm pointing to it now. In 1563, Sir Nicholas Bacon, Lord Keeper of the Great Seal, began to build a new house at Gorhambury, an estate extending over part of the site of Roman Verulamium and the Belgic capital Verulamium, and lying across the River Ver from the town of St. Albans. And the house and estate was to provide a home for his second wife, Lady Anne, née Cook, and their 2 sons, their natural son Anthony, and their foster son Francis, the secret son and heir of Queen Elizabeth I. It was also to be an initiatory training school, as Sir Nicholas was one of the Magi of the English Magian Society, and was in the process of developing the Advancement of Learning project, which he had originally been commissioned to do by Henry VIII. That same year, 1563, Queen Elizabeth commanded her old tutor, Roger Ascham, to write a book concerning the right order of teaching of children and youths, especially those who are brought up in the houses of gentlemen and noblemen. And the book, called The Schoolmaster, was completed in 1566, but it wasn't published until 1570, a couple of years after Ascham's death. The original included a preface titled Divae Elizabethae, which means to the goddess Elizabeth, which was written as a personal letter to the Queen and dated 30th of October 1566. And in this prefacing letter, Ascham makes it clear that in a private interview at Windsor Castle, he was commanded personally by the Queen to write the book, and that the book was designed for the training of a royal prince. Moreover, he likens Queen Elizabeth's life to that of David, King of Israel, and shows that he is intimately conversant with her secret life, the Queen's secret life, singling out in particular the sin of David with respect to Uriah, whose death David brought about in order to hide his adultery with Uriah's wife Bathsheba by marrying her, but which was nevertheless forgiven by God and resulted in the birth of Solomon. And this preface was, not surprisingly, suppressed, concealed by someone unknown, until 1761, when it was first published by James Bennet. The likeness made by Ascham, however, was not lost on Elizabeth, nor on Sir Nicholas and Lady Anne Bacon and others of the Magian Society. And Francis was given an extra special education fit for a prince worthy of being a second Solomon. Francis, son of the Queen and Robert Dudley, was born on the 22nd of January, 1561, New Style, 3.5 months after the death of Amy Robsart, Robert Dudley's wife, on the 8th of September, 1560. And shortly after the secret marriage of the Queen and Dudley at Baynard's Castle, the London townhouse of William Herbert, the first Earl of Pembroke. As recorded in cipher, and according to Madame Amelia Deventer von Kuno's meticulous research in state and private archives and libraries, some of which was published in the 1895 edition of the Dictionary of National Biography, this secret marriage was performed privately before a number of witnesses, with Sir Nicholas Bacon, as Lord Keeper of the Great Seal and Lord Chancellor in all but name, performing the marriage service. Then we come to 1573. The first of all the Magian societies of Europe to call itself the Society of the Golden and Rosy Cross was the English Magian Society, and its naming took place at the beginning of the 1570s. And the Rose and the Golden Cross, otherwise known as the Red Cross, were emblems of St. George, the patron saint of England. And soon after, as if in confirmation of this, in August 1572, a super bright supernova appeared in the sky, which, according to Tycho Brahe, shone brighter than Venus and could easily be seen by the naked eye. There it is there, pointing to now. In 1573, whilst the supernova was still shining brightly, a Saturn-Jupiter opposition occurred. And it wasn't until March 1574 that the supernova disappeared from sight. And the supernova in Cassiopeia signaled to the sages that just as the heavenly queen, Cassiopeia, had given birth to a child who suddenly blazed with light, so on earth a child of an earthly queen would do the same. To Theodore Beza, the Calvinist biblical scholar, and many others, it heralded the second coming of Christ. When the heavenly sphere and earthly globe were married together, as could be done with the celestial and terrestrial globes created by Gerardus Mercator, the constellation Cassiopeia was seen to coincide with the British Isles. And the only queen in the British Isles at that time was the Queen of England, Elizabeth I, who had a remarkably gifted secret son who was being fostered by the Queen's Lord Keeper of the Great Seal, Sir Nicholas Bacon, and his wife, Lady Anne, née Cook. And that son was Francis Bacon, who in April 1573, at the age of 12, entered Trinity College, Cambridge University, accompanied by his 14-year-old brother, Anthony Bacon, the natural son of Sir Nicholas Bacon and Lady Anne Bacon. Whilst there, sometime in 1574, Francis received the great vision of his life's work, the work that was to become the Rosy Cross work. Then we go to 1583. On the 2nd of May, 1583, Saturn-Jupiter great conjunction occurred in the water sign of Pisces. Pointing to that now. In 1583, Sir Thomas Smith's book, De Republica Anglorum, the manner or government of or policy of the realm of England, was first published. It was actually written between 1562 and 1565. And the 1583 published book immediately became an influential work on the nature of politics and constitutional law in Elizabethan England, and would become one of the most influential political philosophical texts in the Western world. Also, in March 1583, the acting company, Queen Elizabeth's Men, was founded at the express command of Queen Elizabeth. Consisting of 12 founding members, it was the first large company of actors in English Renaissance theatre, which enabled it to perform new kinds of play, in particular history plays. It was the dominant acting company for the rest of the 1580s, just as the Lord Chamberlain's Men and the Lord Admiral's Men would be in the decade that followed. And in June 1583, Sir Humphrey Gilbert sailed from Dartmouth, Devon, to establish a colony in North America, which he successfully did on the island of Newfoundland. Now, Francis Bacon seems to have had a notable hand in this project, either then or later, as a tercentenary commemorative stamp was issued in 1910 depicting Francis Bacon and calling him the guiding spirit in colonization scheme. And then in September 1583, the Magus John Dee, who'd been advising the Queen on dates and so on about in the stars, together with Edward Kelly and their two families, set out from England in the company of the Polish nobleman Albert Lasky to visit Poland, after which they went on to visit other European countries. And the following year, in March 1584, Francis Bacon visited Scotland. Most people, even who've studied Francis Bacon, don't know this. And in 1584, Francis Bacon's involvement in high politics started when he wrote his first political memorandum, a letter of advice to Queen Elizabeth, in which he offered a proposal for a new system of the sciences that emphasized empirical methods, thereby laying the foundation for an applied science, but unfortunately the Queen was not supportive. And during the rest of the year, Bacon busied himself with composing his Temporis Partum Maximum, the greatest birth of time, his first attempt at what was later to be developed into the Great Instauration, and that was the Rosicrucian work. And 1593. Well, towards the end of 1592, leading up to 1593, twin novae appeared in Cassiopeia, followed by a Saturn-Jupiter opposition in 1593. In 1593, the Shakespeare work was born, with the publication of Venus and Adonis, with the name William Shakespeare signing the dedication as the author, which was the first time the name had been printed as the author on any of the Shakespeare works. And in 1594, the twin year to 1593, Lucrece was published, also with the name William Shakespeare signing the dedication. And just as the 2 years, 1593 and 1594, twinned each other, so also do the two poems, Venus and Adonis and Lucrece, twin each other. And both poems are about a mortal-immortal twinship. Venus and Adonis being about a mortal man and a queen who was likened to an immortal goddess, and the rape of Lucrece being about a mortal woman and a prince who, like his father, the Tarquin king, was likened to an immortal god. And historically, kings and queens were supposed to be incarnations of gods and goddesses. And the goddess and god referenced in these two poems are Venus and Mars. The Shakespeare poem Venus and Adonis references the Tudor queen, Elizabeth I, as Venus. And indeed, Queen Elizabeth was likened to several goddesses, including Cassiopeia, Astrea, and Diana. And the Tarquin kings of Rome were likened to the god Mars. And it was the son of the last Tarquin king who raped Lucrece, which is the subject of the Shakespeare poem, The Rape of Lucrece. Now, the classical myth concerning Mars and Venus is that they were lovers for eternity and produced Harmony and Cupid as their children. The Shakespeare poems, on the other hand, describe the opposite, thereby echoing the opposition of the planets Saturn and Jupiter and of the two triangles of Solomon's seal. So this beginning of the Shakespeare work thereby details the fundamental human problem, how to resolve the opposites in harmony and friendship, whether differences of sex, differences of opinion, or any other sort of differences. And these two Shakespeare poems, by showing the problem, act as a wake-up call to do better. Then we go to 1603. On the 24th of March, 1603, Queen Elizabeth I of England died and was succeeded by King James VI of Scotland, who was crowned King James I of England on the 25th of July, 1603, thereby uniting the crowns of the two countries. And on the 17th of December, 1603, the Saturn-Jupiter Great Conjunction occurred in the fire sign of Sagittarius. And this was at the same time as a nova was shining in Cygnus the Swan, which had first been sighted in 1600, but had grown brighter by 1603. And this was followed the next year by a dramatic massing of Mars with Saturn and Jupiter in Sagittarius, during which a Saturn-Mars conjunction took place on 26th of September 1604, followed by a Jupiter-Mars conjunction on the 10th of October 1604. And this dramatic massing of the three major planets took place close to the cusp of Sagittarius-Scorpio and the crossing point on the ecliptic of the Milky Way galactic meridian, and not far from the center of the Milky Way galaxy. All this was highly important because not only is the massing of all three planets very rare, but also the great conjunction and massing took place in the fire sign of Sagittarius the Archer, emblematic of the enlightened centaur Charon, who knows the truth and teaches others that truth. In addition, this also marked the beginning of a new trigonalis series. However, what gave this planetary massing in Sagittarius an even greater significance was the fact that it took place together with two dramatically meaningful new stars, a nova in the constellation of Cygnus the Swan, and a supernova in the constellation of Arcas, the Serpent Master. The nova in Cygnus the Swan, which appeared between the neck and breast of Cygnus, was first identified in 1600 and was shining strongly in 1603-4. And after 1604, the star started to fade, but was still visible in 1623 with the aid of a telescope. And Cygnus the Swan is symbolic of the ascended master soul, the supreme poet who can sound or sing the word of God as an individual creator who has become one with the universal creator. Both Orpheus and Jesus Christ, for instance, were symbolized as swans when they ascended to heaven. And Cygnus lies in the Milky Way, symbolic of the Heavenly Mother, where the ascended soul has re-entered her womb and is ready to be reborn on earth as an avatar, an incarnation of the divine. as Cygnus appears as if flying towards where the Great Conjunction, planetary massing, and supernova in Ophiuchus appeared in 1603-4, which is an area that represents the place of birth, with the dark rift of the Milky Way symbolizing the area between the legs of the Heavenly Mother. So there's Cygnus flying down, about to be born, and then as Cygnus is born, passes down the legs of the Divine Mother, and the place of birth is there. Now, this supernova in Ophiuchus appeared in September 1604, and as it was observed and written about by the German astronomer, mathematician, astrologer, and philosopher Johannes Kepler, it became referred to as Kepler's star. And described as being blood red in color, the supernova appeared in Ophiuchus close to the massing of Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars in Sagittarius, all of which were near the cusp of Scorpio-Sagittarius. And this supernova was bright enough to be seen during the day for over 3 weeks and outshone all the stars and planets except Venus in the night sky. And it continued to dominate the night sky for 17 months, after which it faded away. And it was the last supernova observed in our galaxy up to the present day. Ophiuchus, which is in the sign of Scorpio, is known as the mystical 13th sign of the zodiac. And in British mythology, it is the 13th seat of the Arthurian Round Table, the seat of the heir to the throne of Britain. All this is important. Now, this great celestial event was associated with Paracelsus's prophecy of a marvelous being, a great light, Elias the artist, an adept of chemical science, who would appear 58 years after his own death, renovate the arts and sciences, and reveal many things. Paracelsus said that the appearance of this great light would be the sign and harbinger of the approaching revolution. As Paracelsus died in 1541, the discovery in 1600 of the nova in Cygnus was taken as the lead-up to the dramatic celestial events of 1603-4, with the Rosicrucians twinning the Cygnus nova with the Ophiuchus supernova. And this twinning can be seen in the frontispiece to Speculum Sophicum Rhodostauroticum, meaning the mirror of the wisdom of the Rosy Cross, authored by the pseudonymous Theophilus Schweigart Constantians and published in 1618. So that shows the Ophiuchus star, and that shows the Cygnus star. Twins. And in terms of the landscape zodiac of Britain, Britain was then known as England, which included Wales. The supernova was mirrored on Earth just north of London and near to St Albans and Gorhambury, the family home and country seat of Francis Bacon. There it is now. There's London, there's St Albans. And the English Rosicrucians knew this landscape zodiac well and worked with it, which meant that they had a heaven and earth confirmation as to who Elias the artist was. And according to Michael Meyer and others, the 1604 celestial display was a sign to the Rosicrucians to start making their work public and spreading it worldwide. Before that 1604 date and celestial display, the work of the Rosicrucian fraternity had been prepared in secret since its beginnings in 1572-4, when the supernova in Cassiopeia, the heavenly queen, was shining brightly. And in 1605, immediately after the 1604 celestial display, Francis Bacon published his Advancement of Proficience of Learning, Divine and Human, thereby starting to make the Rosicrucian work public. So you see the descent of this down the Milky Way. Remarkable. And then comes the advancement of learning title page, which actually is very cryptic. A decade later, in 1614 and 1615, the twin Rosicrucian manifestos, Fama and Confessio RC, Rosy Cross, were published, which declared that the 1604 celestial display had marked the opening of the tomb of Fra CRC, the founding father of the Rosicrucian fraternity, to reveal him and his books. 1613-14 is the next important date. So on the 23rd of August, 1613, a Saturn-Jupiter opposition took place. Let's show that there. And on St. Valentine's Day, the 14th of February, 1613, the marriage of Princess Elizabeth, King James I of England's eldest daughter, with the German Prince Frederick V, Elector Palatine, took place in London. And the next day, the 15th of February, 1613, as part of the marriage celebrations, a masque called The Marriage of the Thames and Rhine was presented to the newlywed couple and royal court by the gentlemen lawyers of Gray's Inn and the Inner Temple. And the masque, although written by Francis Beaumont, was contrived, organized, and produced by Sir Francis Bacon, the treasurer then of Gray's Inn. And notably, the masque included two anti-masques, the second of which was reproduced later that year, slightly simplified, in the Shakespeare play, The Two Noble Kinsmen. And the following year, 1614, the first Rosicrucian manifesto, Fama Fraternitatis Rosae Crucis, Fame of the Rosy Cross Fraternity, was published in Kassel, Germany, under the auspices of Moritz, the Landgrave of Hesse-Kassel, whose lands bordered the Palatinate. And Moritz, who was styled the Learned, was an Anglophile and an enthusiastic supporter of the performing arts. He was a patron of English strolling players and had built a roofed theatre called the Otternaeum in Kassel, which was the first to be built in what was to become Germany. And Moritz not only maintained close connections with England, but had helped bring about the marriage of Prince Frederick and Princess Elizabeth. And the Fama was followed in 1615 with the publication in Frankfurt of the second Rosicrucian manifesto, Confessio Fraternitatis Rosae Crucis, meaning the confession of the Rosy Cross Fraternity. In 1623, 1624. On 16th of July, 1623, an extremely close Saturn-Jupiter great conjunction occurred in the fire sign of Leo. When Saturn and Jupiter are extremely close, the great conjunction is considered extra special. And such a close conjunction was not repeated until 2020, our era, when a great conjunction occurred on the 21st of December 2020, which was the 20th great conjunction after the 1623 one. And this 2020 date is according to real time, as by the time 20 great conjunctions have occurred, there is a time slip of just over 2.5 years from the ideal time, 2023, the quatercentenary, 400 years, of the 1623 Great Conjunction. Now, in the autumn of 1623, Francis Bacon's De Dignitate et Augmentis Scientiarum and the Shakespeare First Folio were published together as twin folios, echoing on Earth the Saturn-Jupiter Great Conjunction in the zodiac sign of Leo in the heavens. And the folio twinship reveals many important things, including how the immortal twin helps the mortal twin to become immortal. which has been going on, of course. And this was followed the next year, 1624, with the publication of the great cipher manual, Cryptomenetices et Cryptographiae, by Gustavus Solanus. Now, Gustavus Solanus was the pseudonym of Duke Augustus of Brunswick-Lüneburg. Solanus can refer to the moon, Selene, or to Silenus, the centaur who was, as a member of Dionysus's retinue, a companion and tutor of Dionysus. And the Italian name for Dionysus, who was known to the Romans as Bacchus, was Bacco, which was Bacon's name in Italian. You get it? The bottom panel of the title page cryptically shows Francis Bacon as the second Trithemius, the leader of the Rosy Cross fraternity. And the brethren of the Rosy Cross were known as moon men. Moon men. And in the introductory poems of Cryptomenetices, the author, Duke Augustus, is described as Homo Lunae, meaning moon man or man of the moon. Now, the 1623 Great Conjunction was the final one of a 60-year series of Saturn-Jupiter great conjunctions and oppositions that began in 1563, and which were accompanied with highly meaningful and well-timed novas and supernovas. And together with its 1624 twin year, the 1623 Great Conjunction year completed the Solomon's seal that was made into a blazing star by the work on Earth of the Rose Cross fraternity. Now, in terms of the quatercentenaries of this Rosy Cross Blazing Star, they have been occurring every 10 years since their beginning in 1963. 1963, with the completion of the star taking place in the quatercentenary twin years 2023 and 2024. 2023 and 2024. However, a quatercentenary is an expression of ideal time, which is not necessarily the same as real time. Because the time that it takes for 20 great conjunctions to occur is slightly less than 400 years. It means that the 20th great conjunction after the 1563 great conjunction actually occurred on 18th of February 1961 in the Earth sign of Capricorn. And the 20th great conjunction after the 1623 great conjunction occurred on the 21st of December 2020 in the air sign of Aquarius. Therefore, in terms of great conjunction real time, the present-day Rosy Cross Blazing Star occurred from 1961 to 2020, with each great conjunction and opposition year twinned with the year following. But what is important is it's important to recognize that both ideal time and real time, they're both important and both have a profound effect. This is actually science. The idea or ideal is put into action, and the result of the action modifies or develops the ideal, which then leads to the next action, and so on and so on. So in other words, the quatercentenary blazing star that we have been experiencing for the last 60-odd years began in 1963, but in real time, its beginning was in 1961, the beginning of the famous 60s, when young people started to discard the restrictive rules of society that had governed everyone for so long. And ever since, there have been major revolutions, not just in culture, but also in science and technology, which have been and still are being transformational of human life throughout the world. And all the great conjunctions and oppositions during this time have produced notable effects. But of a special note is the great conjunction that took place on 31st of December 1980 in the air sign of Libra. And this is when the great conjunction series entered the air trigon, having been in the earth trigon previously. There's also a triple great conjunction, with the other two great conjunctions at that time occurring on the 6th of March and 25th of July 1981. Because it was a triple great conjunction and was the first to enter the air trigon of the Trigonolis series that was begun in 1603, it had an extra powerful effect. That 80s decade saw the dawn of home computing and emergence of cable networks and profound shifts in international relations, including the dismantling of the Berlin Wall and the end of the Cold War. And this continued into the 90s with the collapse of communism and breakup of the Soviet Union, leaving the USA as the world's sole superpower, and the establishment of the European Union in 1993, the North American Free Trade Agreement in 1994, and the World Trade Organization in 1995. And on the technological side, the 90s saw the creation of the Internet and World Wide Web, which ushered in a new era of communication, business, and entertainment. And the next great conjunction of special note was the one that occurred on the 28th of May 2000, wherein the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction regressed to the Earth sign of Taurus instead of being in the air sign of Gemini. But this was the 20th great conjunction of the 1603 Saturn-Jupiter conjunction that announced the birth of the great light, Elias the artist, alias Christian Rosy Cross. At the beginning of 2000, the new millennium was celebrated across the world, with the first decade of the new millennium witnessing a rapid acceleration of technological innovation that has revolutionized the way we live, work, communicate, build our communities, and behave. This was interrupted with the sudden financial crisis of 2008, which had profound repercussions on the global economy, causing widespread unemployment and poverty, from which the world is still struggling to recover, with the divide between rich and poor accelerated, but made clearer to see. Since then, the world has experienced political revolutions and civil wars in many countries, an increase in extremism and terrorism, and a dangerous amplification of climatic problems, all of which has both caused and accelerated mass migrations, which in turn have brought challenging social, economic, and political problems to the receiving countries for them to solve. But all these challenges are both forcing and stimulating human thinking to invent solutions, which, if successful, will lead us into a completely new world and new type of humanity. And the final Saturn-Jupiter Great Conjunction of the 60-year series occurred on the 21st of December 2020 in the air sign of Aquarius. It was the 20th one after the 1623 Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, which, with its twin year 1624, marked the completion of the Rosy Cross Blazing Star. So it is not without note that the 2020s began with the COVID-19 pandemic, still ongoing but mitigated, followed by major outbreaks of war, most notably the full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Russia, which epitomizes the polarity of democracy and dictatorship, but carries the threat of expanding into a nuclear world war with devastating consequences. And all this is happening whilst mega changes in the climate and the planet generally are occurring, which are causing increasingly enormous problems for humanity and nature, with the problems not yet being solved. And this year, 2024, the quartercentenary of the final year, 1624, of the Rosy Cross Blazing Star, there are key elections occurring in many countries which may well decide the future path of humanity and the planet. But this doesn't mean that there can't be another blazing star, or that we can't derive inspiration from the original Rosy Cross Blazing Star and its modern quatercentennial equivalent. And in terms of the North Pole star Arcas, which is a blazing star, it is worth knowing that it is symbolic of our own North Star, which shines above the crown of our head, the rays of which inspire us. In terms of our own personal cosmos, the above has always been referred to as our north, and what is below is our south. For this reason, the north wind, Boreas, is traditionally known as emblematic of the wind or breath of creative inspiration, the Holy Spirit, which comes from Hyperborea, the land beyond the north wind, i.e. the north wind's source. In other words, Hyperborea and Arcadia are one and the same, and Arcas, the blazing star, is the gateway into this land, the land of the Rosicrucians, the land of illumination, the land of peace. And like all good gateways, its underlying design is a cryptograph that tells us what we need to do. A cryptograph is a hexagram or Solomon's seal. I hope you can see it here, 2 triangles. And it's only if we can unite the 2 triangles, the 2 opposites, the 2 polarities or twins in love and friendship, that the seal will become the blazing star. That is our real challenge. So I'll end the screen sharing there. And there I end my talk. So thank you very much for listening. And you can find out more on the FBRT website. That's the Francis Bacon Research Trust website, and the FBRT YouTube channel, and also by attending other talks I give, which are not necessarily shared publicly on the FBRT website or the YouTube channel. But you'll get notifications if you look at the website and follow its instructions to go further. Thank you very much. Goodbye.